Hey everyone, welcome to Color by Felix podcast. We're excited that you guys are here today, and we are also excited because we have Wendy with us, and I'm going to introduce my brother-in-law, Sebastian, and Andrea is next to me, my wife, and we have Wendy, like I said, and we're just going to jump in and start to get to know each other.
Awesome. And so, yeah, Wendy is, what's your @Wendy on Instagram?
Yeah. It's WendyPaints on Instagram.
Cool. Awesome. And so how did you guys meet?
How did I meet Felix or Andrea?
Yeah, Felix.
I stumbled across Felix's channel quite a long time ago. I want to say maybe 3 years ago. Around then, I was just kind of getting back into art and into acrylics. And I found you on YouTube, and I just thought your videos were amazing. And I really liked the type of work you did and the tutorials you did. So that was when I first followed you on YouTube. And then later on Instagram was a bit later, because I didn't get an Instagram account until a bit later, maybe about 2 years ago. And then so from there on, that was how I first got introduced to Felix, and then Andrea through Instagram as well.
And so, like, I remember that you do a lot of watercolor, right? So you play with watercolor and acrylics. What do you work on mainly right now?
Yeah, so it's funny because I've been painting with acrylics for longer than watercolors, but since my Instagram journey, a lot of the paintings I've been posting have been watercolors. So I think a lot of people have known me for that mainly. And so I started painting a lot of pet portraits. So I did a challenge for myself. I think maybe it was a year or two ago. I think it was about 2 years ago, and I did about 30 days of pets. So I did one pet portrait a day for about 30 days as a way of kind of just, getting to know more about that medium, and also practicing painting animals. And I really enjoyed the whole process of, painting fur and creating the emotions in the animals. And so that was when I got started with my journey for watercolors. So that's still my main medium, I would say, but recently, I've actually been getting back into acrylics a lot lately. And since I was lucky enough to win your brushes, Felix, so after I started playing around with your blending brushes and your acrylics, I think that really got me back into my background of acrylics. And so, I've been experimenting with that a lot lately. But at the same time, I've also been doing some commissions for watercolor pet portraits. So a good balance of both, which I guess is it's good because it kind of helps with getting, if you're feeling stuck, I feel like switching between mediums for me personally really help with sparking that creativity as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great. So do you feel like the fact that it was like a challenge that you gave yourself, and you had these daily deadlines, do you feel like that helped you hit another level with your talent or your career? Like, did it just, having that constraint actually help you become more creative, or more just hit a new level?
Yeah, I think it definitely helped in terms of the discipline of just putting some paint down onto paper every day, because sometimes I feel like I would be waiting for inspiration to hit before I started painting. But I know that inspiration doesn't always happen, and sometimes inspiration I find can be quite fleeting. So I could be very inspired, while I'm still working in my day job, and then after work, when I'm ready to paint, you find that inspiration is not there anymore. So I think having that kind of challenge really sets your discipline to creating work every day. And I think through, like, after the 30 days, it just become more of a habit rather than you're trying to create a painting. So I think that really helps develop a habit and practice your art as well.
Definitely, because I feel like the natural tendency as an artist is that we're more free spirits, right? And then like words like discipline and habit and routine can be kind of scary to us. But like, I know I've personally found that, like, when I introduce a little bit of discipline, not too much, into my life, things tend to go well with the art,
Yeah, I think also like with Felix, I mean, at least for like the business side, that's something that has really like impacted Felix's career is that like he's been super disciplined about like posting, putting his art out there. And like I noticed you, Wendy, have been like putting a lot more out. So I wanted to ask you, like, how is your like art journey going so far? Like as a business, is your goal to make it a business? Are you doing it full time? Like I'd love to hear what you're up to.
Sure. So right now I still work a full-time job, and it is a job that requires many hours of my day. So I work 5 days a week, and it's a corporate job. So the hours can be quite long. And that actually is what kind of got me back into art, was because my job was so numerical and analytical that I needed the art side to give me a bit of balance, because I feel like everyone needs a little bit of balance just to, you know, keep things interesting. And yeah, I find that after a long day of work, I like to, you know, go back into painting because it just helps me relax and unwind. And at the moment, I'm currently working on building my website. That's something I've always wanted to do, but I never really kind of got around to it, because also, you know, it requires a lot of, you know, technical web development skills, which I think as artists, we're not usually, you know, that adept in, but I do really want to do that, and to kind of have more of that online presence also, like away from just Instagram, and just diversifying a little bit. And I think I eventually do want to release some collections, which would mean, yeah, like going back to acrylics and then having, you know, like art on the canvas. Yeah, definitely something I want to do hopefully this year, but it really depends on, yeah, like how much time I have after work, because I would usually finish work, say about 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, and I paint from about 10 o'clock in the evening to 2 a.m. in the morning, and that would be my time. Yeah, so that's pretty much, yeah, I don't, there's
When do you
unfortunately
start work in the morning?
I start at around 9:30
Wow.
in the morning. Yeah, and then so
Crazy.
it's usually about a 10-12 hour day, and then afterwards I'm just
You're killing
definitely
it.
definitely in need of some art to to keep some balance for me. Yeah, because it's a very a data heavy role. So yeah, the painting definitely helps bring some balance back into my life.
So what do you do for your living, if you don't
Oh,
mind sharing?
yeah, sure. It's so completely opposite to art. I do financial modeling at a asset management company, so it's definitely completely different to painting. But yeah, I do like the mix of both. I do like the analytical aspect of my role, but I like definitely enjoy the creative aspect a lot more. Yeah, and just having both, I guess, keeps, yeah, things in balance.
I agree with you, you know, with the whole balance thing, because like I had a job where I didn't create, you know, and I just like was focused, my energy was only focused on the work, and I didn't have the creative juices, you know, like I didn't have that balance, and it was often I felt it deep inside. I felt like in my body, I felt something was off. But when I found, even I, you know, like I had like a couple jobs actually before transitioning. I didn't transition out, like jumped in straight to art. It just slowly transitioned to like a full-time thing, you know. But, and I remember I had this job where it was like, and it was terrible, you know. And I feel like when you have that balance, you could totally have like a side job or something and be able to create art and still be super happy about that, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, what jobs did you work? Can I ask?
I mean, I did a lot of random stuff, but I did construction with my family, my brothers and my dad.
Wow.
I did modeling. I did doorman stuff, like catering
Wow.
stuff. So it's like just a bunch of like
Wow. Yeah.
Odd jobs.
odd jobs. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well,
I think that's great. Like having to kind of experiment with different roles as well to see what you like, and yeah, that's amazing.
well, I want to ask a question on behalf of myself, actually, because I'm really curious about this, and any other artists who maybe are wondering this. So like, you know, I'm still working a day job too. And my day job mostly involves writing at the moment, right? But what's interesting to me is I still haven't figured it out, but I think that like I actually preferred having a day job where I didn't really have to think creatively, you know, because like in the past, I worked in fashion as well. That's how I met Felix. And my job was very physical. It was like
Right.
steaming clothes, helping models get changed fast, stuff like that. And so I found that I could just kind of let my mind wander while I worked, even when I worked at a deli, stuff like that. And I would come home and I was more charged up creatively. So I was wondering what you guys think, like, if you think there's something to that, like that you have a certain amount of creative juice that you wake up with in the morning, and that it's maybe like better to just have a job where you're not doing anything creative and then you come home and be creative, or if you think it like is actually better to go get a job where, say for example, you're a painter and your day job is you're a graphic designer, so it's kind of related, it's visual art. Like, do you think that's better?
I actually agree with what you said initially about that helping out that you didn't have a creative day job. I feel the exact same with mine as well, that because there's no creative energy at all in my day job, that I'm able to kind of save that for later in the daytime and be able to use that. Whereas I think if I were doing a creative role, then it would definitely be harder to still maintain that when it comes to painting time. So yeah, in that aspect, I agree. Like my experience has been the same as yours, Sebastian, in that it felt better to have that creative energy stored for later when it comes to making the art.
Yeah. What do you think, Felix?
So I agree with both. I think honestly, there's challenges to both levels. Like if you even a full-time, like right now, like what I do is a lot of editing. So I edit videos. I never studied how to edit. I don't know how, like, I never like learned how to, professionally learn how to edit videos or whatever. I did it all by myself. I kind of had to, like we're living in this kind of world where videos do better in a way, right? In every platform. And so like I spend a lot of time editing, which is kind of creative, but it's not like, creative in that way where I want to paint and put out something is different. So, so that's, I remember like, I still enjoy it, but I feel like, I feel like it's still work, like it was still like a job where I catered or whatever. And then if I, like, when I had time, I was filled with that creative. I'm like, all right, now I'm home. I set this time to just focus on my creative thought. I just built everything inside me, like you guys said, and then let it all out. And sometimes, your best work could come out like that, when it's all filled up. But if you have like, if you're just filled up, like if your cup is like just like a quarter full and you're just kind of every day releasing it a quarter full, it's like you're creating a lot, but are you really creating that like fully,
full
inspiration coming out, so I don't know, I feel like it's both, it depends how you, like you said, balance things. I think I don't know if that answers. Yeah,
I guess in relation to that question, in the time that you're creating after work, is because you said from like 7 to like 2 a.m. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would usually paint around from 10 in the evening to 2 in the morning.
Oh, 10. Okay.
Yeah.
So in that 4 hours, is that all like you painting, or you do multiple projects? Like, is it
pretty
one
much
project?
yeah, I dedicate that time to pretty much painting. I find that I'm pretty much a night owl as well. So I think luckily in that aspect, I feel a lot of the creativity coming out when I paint at night, because I do find a difference when I paint on the weekends. So when I finally have, daytime to do my artwork, I feel like it doesn't come as naturally as when I'm at night. Even though at night, it's always harder to judge your colors because you don't have the best light. Even though I have some, like daylight LED, it's never the same as natural sunlight. And it's a bit different in that aspect. But for some reason, I think also probably because I've been doing that for so long that I'm just kind of accustomed to painting at nighttime. And also because when everything's very quiet, I feel like you can really just get lost in your creativity and have like, no distractions when you're creating.
That's fun.
Yeah. Well, and I think that you are like an extreme example of like productivity and so I think this might help Felix's audience, because I know people are always wondering, like, especially beginning artists are always wondering, how do I make time for this? And like, clearly you're working 10 to 12 hours a day. That's extreme, and still finding time for art. So like, what tips
I
would you
love
have?
it.
Like
You're so good.
yeah, I personally would never do that, but like if you can make that work, like I would love to know what tips you have for other artists who are struggling to find time.
Yeah, sure. I would say select a time slot where you feel like you're not going to have as much distractions, and just dedicate that time to painting. And also, one thing I found helpful was having all the prep work kind of done before you enter that time when you're creating, because sometimes when the setup time is too extensive, or you have to still get all the brushes out, get all the water, it really kind of cuts into that time. And and then afterwards I feel like, oh, I'm not really in the mood anymore, because the setup time just takes so long. So I think having that prepared, so that when it comes to that time when you're creating, you can just go straight into it, I found that to be really helpful. And sometimes, like, with that whole setup time, it maybe someone might prefer like drier mediums as well. So I think if you have like a very short window of time where you just want to create something, go with like a dry medium. There's like not as much setup. It could just be like a sketch, a pencil drawing, but something that doesn't require as much, getting all the supplies out and getting things ready, also helps you to get into creating art straight away, and just making the most use out of the very short little amount of time that you do have.
It's so true. I totally know what you're saying. Even though I'm not an artist, I've seen that happen to Felix so many times.
All the time. No, for sure.
Yeah.
Like setting up, like it's sometimes like you're gonna, you set a time to just like paint today, and just thinking about like that 20 minutes or whatever, 30 minutes to set up, you're thinking, oh, I have to get the tripod, I have to choose a canvas, I have to do this, clean out this, like get all prepared, tape this and all that stuff. And that those little steps, but they can get in the way sometimes. Maybe one day me and you will have an assistant. I've seen like bigger artists, they have assistants where they do that for them,
Oh wow, awesome.
That would be nice.
But for the regular person, just do pencils.
That's why I personally love colored pencils and pens, because you just can whip it out and start right there. Yeah. But I mean, hey, you can, I feel like you can reach these higher highs with things like acrylics and oils, because you have all access to all this blending and colors and stuff. But like, there is something to be said about like, hey, I've got the creative impulse, I'm just going to whip out a black pen and do something fast.
Yeah, it's true. I love the way that you make time for your art. And I feel like, because so many people use that excuse, like, oh, I'm working a full-time job, I don't have time for my art. And I feel like it's like, well, do you think that like we had time, like when we got started, Felix was working like 2 jobs. So it's like, you just gotta prioritize the things that matter to you, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. And then I actually also found that at nighttime, because I know that I can't film anything, because the lighting's just not right for that I'm able to create better. I do find that like when I'm recording something, there's a bit more of that, as Felix mentioned, that setup time involved, putting the camera where it needs to be. And then initially when I first started, recording things, it felt a little bit unnatural, because it's like someone's watching you, even though, there's no one watching you, but that something is there. And it just didn't feel as natural. Whereas like you get used to it over time, but I felt like at night, when I know that I can't record anything, I can just paint how I paint, and I don't have to worry about the process. It could be very spontaneous and sporadic, but that I guess just goes into the process of creating.
It's crazy the time we're living in, that like it's like almost like it's required of every artist to have their song recording themselves. Imagine Picasso or Van Gogh having a camera, setting up the camera to record themselves painting Starry Night Sky.
Definitely different times we live in, because I remember when I like first started painting was like maybe when I was still a teen. I just had a few art lessons, and one painting would take weeks to do, so I couldn't imagine ever recording the process back then, just because it took so long. But I feel like nowadays, like the speed of which I guess artists are producing their paintings and art are just a lot quicker. So having that camera out can capture the entire process rather than just, you know, a part of the process that you have to stitch up for multiple weeks.
Mm.
Do you guys think that there's a route that people can take because I kind of believe that like the whole put out fast content thing is more of like a necessary concession than it is like an ideal way to work, you know? Like, I think it's just kind of like us adapting to the times.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
do you think there's a way to do it or to run your social media and stuff where you could put out less content and, you know what I mean? Or maybe put out content, but you know, less of it having to do with your actual painting so that you're able to like take your time and really make it the painting you want to make it. What do you guys think? Like, is there a way to do that?
What do you think, Wendy? I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting topic because I do think Instagram and social media in general is a bit of a double-edged sword that way. It can give you exposure to, you know, a lot of people and get your art seen around the world, but because things are now so fast paced, and I think you kind of have to play the game to reap the rewards. And I think naturally, because, you know, Instagram's just is that platform where, you know, there's quick turnaround now, that it's expected of artists, you know, to create a lot in order to stay relevant and stay seen. But I think there definitely needs to be a fine balance. I don't think creating for the purpose of, you know, sharing and posting should be the main goal. I don't think that should be the main goal, but like taking your time to create the art you want and then sharing that final product is definitely what's more important. But yeah, like Sebastian, I definitely agree. At the moment, I've seen a lot of artists have burnout just because of the pressures of having to keep up with social media and, you know, the rate at which artwork is coming out. And I think sometimes there tends to be that feeling of, oh, I gotta, you know, finish this piece so I can, you know, post it and get on to the next one. And I think yeah, that kind of mentality, I guess, isn't the most helpful in creating, you know, what you really want to create. So it is definitely a fine balance with that. Yeah. What about you? What do you think, Felix?
Man, that's a tough one, but yeah, I agree. I think it's like it really depends on what your goals are. I think, like, what are you trying to, like, just be able to, you know, do this as like a full-time thing and a living, then I feel like you almost kind of have to put a little bit more work than the regular artists, because there's artists out there that are just creating and not, like, just posting, and their goal is not to like do this as a living. They're fine with having two jobs or one job and doing this as a side thing, you know, and that's fine for them. They're just, you know, they don't need to feel that pressure, you know, to create every day, post every day. But so it really depends, I think, on what your goals are, you know.
Well, I noticed, like, even like you were saying with Felix, that we've definitely been through seasons where he's felt very burnt out, you know, and like at that point we had to like reevaluate our schedule, reevaluate what we're putting out and why, and kind of like at some point you also have to like be like, all right, this is all I can do, you know, and let's find a way to like be able to maybe split up posts or like drag out some content, you know, and with less work, you know, because otherwise it's just too much, I think, like you said.
Yeah, and that happened to me, you know. I got stuck, and I was like disciplined with posting like on a regular schedule and on the time, like every week, and I was just staying consistent with that for a while. But it gets to, you know, like it gets to, because I wanted to just do art full time. I wanted to, that was the only thing I could see myself doing in this life, you know. And I worked so hard, and I'm working still really hard, you know, to be able to maintain and keep that and keep growing, of course. But it did get to me, you know. There's times where I felt like I was controlled by Instagram or Facebook, or, you know, and like I was working almost like for them instead of me just creating what, you know, what I wanted to create. Like I felt like almost like, oh, I have to follow this new thing. There's new changes and I have to adapt, and I have to keep it up.
I have
And
to put out 4 paintings a
Yeah.
day. No.
it's impossible right now. Like I feel like after, especially with like this last year, I feel like me and Andrea talked and we were like, you know what, like I'm just gonna I'm not gonna try to have these platforms have this control over me and my creation. I feel like I'm just gonna continue creating, and share whenever it's done. Like I used to have a schedule, but now I just share when it's done. Even if I do 2 paintings in a day, I'll share it, like I'll whatever it is, I'm not gonna just try to like, like I used to be like, oh no, I didn't paint in 1 week. Oh no, the audience, I'm gonna lose this or lose, I was thinking like that, like, and like every other person, but I think when you let that go and you just create, just when you first started creating, like that first passion, I feel like you're actually enjoying it a lot more,
Yeah, I definitely agree about enjoying it a lot more, because I felt before I started my Instagram account, like it's different kind of painting it for yourself and then painting it and then having it on definitely a different process, and the amount of time that you can take and have a painting on the easel for like a week sitting there and slowly chipping away at it, compared to having to have that schedule. So yeah, I definitely agree with you, Felix, like just using the platform as a tool rather than letting the platform use you. Yeah, it's definitely a healthy balance, a healthy relationship with social media, I guess. Yeah.
That's super good. So in relation to that also, I wanted to ask you, like, have you always been creative? Have you always like been drawn to painting or artistic experiences? I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, I definitely would say I think it sounds a bit cliche when people say, oh, I've always been to art as well, but that's the same with me. I think I started drawing when I was about like 3 or 5. That's when I first kind of really enjoyed drawing, and I think naturally I started like doing some art lessons. Back then it was I had like a group class, I think when I was about 15 or 16, where I would go into those in-person art classes where the teacher would have one sculpture placed in the middle of the room and they would shine a light onto it. So it'll cast shadows on different areas depending on where you sit in the room, and you would choose where you want to sit. There would have to be like 10 different easels in the room, and you get to choose where you sit and just draw that sculpture from your perspective. And I thought that was really interesting, and I did that for about a year, but then corporate life got in the way, so it just became I moved away from that, and I pursued a full-time job. But then as I started proceeding in my corporate role, I found that need to go back into that creative aspect. So that's when I kind of came back to acrylics and came back into art in general, and just then now I'm finding like a really happy middle ground between the two. And I think just it goes back to balance, but definitely creativity has always been at the heart of what I like doing most.
Yeah, I can totally relate, because I knew from basically day one that I was an artist, and then I followed the corporate path as well, because I'm not going to speak for you, I'm just going to speak for myself. I kind of believed the hype, which was like, hey, you've got to, at like age 18, when we're making these kinds of decisions or whatever. I don't know what age it is in Australia that you graduate and go to school, but it's around here it's like you graduate high school at 18 and all of a sudden everyone's asking you what you're doing with your life, and you don't want to tell them art because you don't even know how you're going to make money at art, right? And especially pre-social media. I mean, I'm probably older than me and Felix are probably the oldest ones here, and then so we were like pre-Instagram and stuff, and back then, I mean, there was
MySpace.
Yeah, it's like, what was the route to be a successful artist?
I remember this.
Yeah,
I remember MySpace days.
Yeah, and so it's like you don't see a lot of examples like you do today of people actually making money off of it, and so you're like, all right, I better go corporate, and I did that. But that, like you said, the itch never went away. I always knew I wanted to make art way more than I wanted to even make money, right? but I had to make money. But by the same token, it's like, yeah, I guess what I want to know after all that ramble is, you're making money now at your art, right?
Yeah, I do commissions at the moment.
Yeah. So have you kind of thought about what your future looks like and how you're going to phase out of corporate life, or if you're going to stay in corporate life? Or
Yeah, that's that's an interesting question. I haven't, like, that is something that I have definitely given thought to it, like what I ideally want. But then there's also, I guess, I start thinking about what I realistically, can achieve. And I think I've always wanted to eventually get into part-time corporate job, and then maybe part-time art. And then I feel like my thinking kind of changes, as time goes by, or even sometimes depending on my mood. But I think corporate life will play a small part of my life, because I do like what I do at work. I like that analytical data aspect as well. So I think in a way that's always going to be a part of me as well. And the cost of living in Sydney is insane, and I don't think I could ever make a living. Well, personally, I don't think I could make a living from art, but I know like a lot of artists who can. But for me, I think I do want to keep art as kind of like part hobby. So I do commissions, and the money I receive from those, I invest back into art supplies, and I kind of keep that I guess a balance in that aspect. So my corporate life just helps, pay for my living expenses, but then my creative, what I get from my creative life, I end up investing back into it as well. So I kind of keep a balance there. And I find that just getting new art supplies sometimes makes me really happy, and keeps that creativity going. So it's always getting new art supplies is always a joy. And I think I'm lucky enough to have those commissions to be able to fund those. So I think so I guess, to answer your question, I see a mix of both in my life going forward. And sometimes sometimes I'm worried, I guess, that if I were to pursue art full time, that there would be more pressures to creating. So that in that aspect, I think
Right.
I would be keeping both going forward. But I really admire what you do, Felix, and being able to do it full time, because I think that's always the dream for so many people, to make it full time as an artist, as you have done. And I think a lot of people don't see or the business aspect of having art as a career. And I think Andrea, you do an amazing job helping with that side of things. So definitely I would say having an art as a career, I think it might not be something that people see all the aspects of
Right.
initially, because there's just so much more to it than just creating. There's also the marketing and all of that that needs to get factored into the equation as well. And I do enjoy the creating aspect the most, which is what I want to focus on with my spare time.
Right. So as a final note to maybe from what I'm getting from your story, is as a piece of advice to artists wondering that question, what do I do? Do I try to be a full-time artist or not? Maybe the answer is just be really honest with yourself about what you really want, and then take the time to check it out and see what it's actually like, maybe, right? Because you're saying, maybe it gives you a degree of freedom if you keep your day job and you're not depending on your art to make you money. Then maybe you don't have to do what Andrea and Felix are doing, which is run a full-time business, behind the art or whatever. Maybe that's not your style. Maybe you don't want to do a small business. Maybe you want to just keep your painting something you can do for commissions here and there. But it's maybe the answer is just be honest with yourself, look into it. What do you really want for yourself? And make the choice there. And if you're happy keeping a day job, then do that.
Totally. And I think also that having an art business, it's not the easiest thing in the world for sure. Like it's definitely a lot of work. So I think what Sebastian said, like it's really important. You have to be very honest with yourself, like what you think that you can do, what you believe you have time for. Also kind of what Wendy was saying, like, do you want this to become a job as well? Because also there are like times when Felix is creating something and he's like, I don't really enjoy this, but I'm going to do it because, you know, it's my job, you know, like there's times like that. And do you want art to be like turn into that, or do you want it to just be kind of more of a fun thing, you know? So I think it's really what each person wants. Like what Sebastian said, there's a couple of different paths.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think it's always going to be work. Like people don't see like, oh, full-time artist, you know, there's always going to be work. It's all work. I think working in construction, I'm thankful that I don't have to physically work, but like here I'm still working kind of mentally and like in a way physically. In a way it's kind of similar. It's all work, you know. It's just I'm definitely happier that it's in the creative. But I think like we talked earlier, it's like it really depends on each artist and their goal, what they want to really their goals are, and exploring, you know, asking questions, asking other artists, hey, how are you doing, you know, like how is it looking from your side of point of view, you know, and kind of asking around, and maybe that will help too. Yeah. But I think that's, you know, and you never know, like if like what you're doing is totally cool. That's what a lot of people are doing, you know, like it's awesome, you know. Like I remember having a job and still painting, and I felt the same kind of inspiration, same kind of work, you know, like in a way. And it's same thing, you know. It doesn't matter like if it's you're full-time or not a full-time, you know. It's art, you're creating art, you know, and that's the yeah, so it really depends. Anyway, you
I read. Oh, you go. I was gonna say, I read something on Andrea's Instagram, one of your stories, and I thought that was really good advice that you shared, Andrea. That think about the risk that you're willing to take, whether you know you want to be depending. Are you okay with maybe like an income stream that isn't, I guess, constant? You would have like, you know, sometimes you would have peaks and sometimes you'd have troughs, or whether you're looking after a more like a constant income stream. So I think that what you shared, Andrea, on your stories about think about the risk that what kind of risk you're willing to take. I think that's really good advice, and it would be different for everyone. I think some people would just prefer like a lifestyle where, you know, they're expecting a steady stream of income, and I think for art that's definitely not what you would be getting. So I guess, yeah, taking into all considerations, I thought that was really helpful advice that you gave, Andrea.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad it could help. Yeah. I definitely think that's important. And I think it's something that is not talked about enough, because right now it's like the glamorous thing is to be like, oh, I'm a full-time artist, but it's like no one talks about like the struggle behind that as well. And I think that's really important. It's like, yeah, you know, being a full-time artist is amazing, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot that goes into it, and like trying to maintain everything. And there is risk for sure. But there's also a lot of reward. So yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's like we don't all have to be Gary V, you know what I mean? I think there's a lot of glamorization of the hustle and the grind, and it's like maybe that's for a certain type of person who's very driven and very motivated and wants to win and wants to be number one. But like for the rest of us, it's like I think if we're honest with ourselves, we'd be more happy with just designing a good lifestyle for ourselves that we enjoy, that's peaceful to live every day. You know,
for sure.
But anyway, so I want to know about like why furry animals. That's my thing. It's amazing. The way you're able to
no one does
animals
like
texture.
you.
It's like the fluffier the better.
So cute.
Thank you so much. I think
you have animals.
No, I don't have any dogs or cats at the moment, but I do eventually want a dog. I think what I really enjoy about painting animals and especially pets is the commissions that I do, and you see when someone receives that artwork and how much joy it brings to them, and you know that
That's
that
amazing.
piece of work is going to like a happy home where some of my clients, they would film reaction videos for me and send it to me to especially when they're purchasing it as gifts, for their loved ones. And I think that is in itself is so rewarding for me, just being able to see, people's reactions and how much happiness it brings them to see, their furry friend painted. So that's definitely a part of why I like to paint them so much as well. So I think I guess it's a different kind of reward as well. Like there's the reward you feel from creating the piece, but then there's also that reward you get from seeing people's reactions and how much they love it, and you just know that you're making someone else happy with your art as well. So I think that's definitely an aspect that I really enjoy about painting animals.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know exactly how you feel. I mean, I'm sure you do too, Sebastian.
Yeah.
My brother is obsessed with our 2 dogs that my parents have. So yeah, I know he's picturing them painted right now.
Yeah. I might have to send a little commission your way one of these days.
I'd love to.
But yeah, I think just as an animal lover, like, I mean, it's kind of my fantasy to like own a ranch one day, and like foster dogs and stuff. And it's like, I think there is something so cool because that bond that these people have with their pets is so special. It's like, the pet is this pure soul that just doesn't judge you and just loves your company. And just, it's so nice to come home to, and then to have them immortalized on a canvas. I mean, that's just gotta be so special to do that for people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I'm really hoping I get a dog one day as well and be able to feel, how people feel so connected to their pets. So yeah, definitely I'm on the cards for the future as well.
Nice. So with your art, you mainly do commissions, but do you sell like originals other than commissions? And do you do like prints, or is that something you're like considering, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm considering at the moment. So back when I got back into painting acrylics, because they took up so much space when you have so many canvases and there's only so much storage space you have. I didn't think of selling them initially because I don't know, I would kind of get attached to what I create initially. And also, I didn't know I guess, in terms of like in the selling perspective, because when I first got back into it, it was more just like a hobby that I didn't think about the selling part or, the pricing and all of those things that you would need to work out. So I just kind of kept those paintings to myself and they're with me in my living room. But I think over time you build up such a collection of canvases that you're like, wow, I need to either store these or, sell these. And that's actually partly why I got into watercolor as well, because the storage space for watercolor is a lot smaller when you're just painting on paper compared to canvas. But one thing I definitely want to do this year is, now that I'm currently working on my website, I do want to list those paintings for sale and also making some prints of it. So definitely going to put more energy into that aspect of art, into having that platform to be able to sell my originals as well. Something I'm working on this year.
Nice.
So yeah, I've noticed that like lately you've been like, your account's been growing, like seems like, are you posting more now than you were before?
I am. Yeah, I think I'm posting more frequently now, but also I guess leaning to the video content as kind of knowing that Instagram kind of favors that a bit more now. So I've been trying to put out some videos, but I think my account, I think I guess grew more quickly when I stopped caring about my feed and what exactly I was sharing, and kind of just taking it as instead of like a highly curated feed and grid, more just like now I'm treating it as I'm just documenting your journey, instead of having to curate a feed. And I think I stopped kind of worrying about whether this artwork fit into the previous and whether it looked aesthetic. It was just I just posted because I enjoyed creating it. Yeah, so if you looked at it, it's just a mixture of different types of styles and arts. But I think
That's awesome.
yeah, when you don't have that pressure of that aspect, I think that really helped. And I think I read in your ebook as well, Andrea, when you said that, when you were managing Felix's account and you noticed that when you stopped caring about the feed, that it actually, helped a lot to grow as well. And I think, I definitely experienced the same in that aspect when you're just treating it as a documentary of your journey rather than, trying to piece the perfect aesthetics. It's just like keeping it more real, which I think more people can relate to. Yeah.
And you're just on Instagram, or do you have like TikTok, on Facebook or anything like that, or just Instagram for you right now?
So mainly on Instagram. I'm also on YouTube, but on YouTube I've been doing more art supply reviews. So I did do maybe like one painting tutorial on YouTube, but I do enjoy kind of reviewing art supplies as well, like kind of like the in-depth reviews and testing videos. I find that aspect quite enjoyable, and it's something that I like to do with new art supplies that I get. So I've been working on that as well. But I do relate to what you said, Felix, about editing videos is time consuming and it feels different to creating. So I guess I do have to find a balance with the very limited time that I do have, I guess, between all the different platforms. So at the moment I have been just focusing on Instagram, but I do also want to put out some more videos on YouTube as well, because I do think YouTube is probably better for longevity as well. I found that, like compared to Instagram, I guess has a shorter life in terms of each content piece that you put out. So I do want to lean a bit more into YouTube this year as well, hopefully.
That's awesome.
That's smart. And I think that what you're saying is just so true. Like, and I think that, I mean, it's been a big lesson for me too. It's like, I think the spirit of art, when you boil everything else away, is like spontaneity, like it comes from your soul, it's not something you can map out and plan. I mean, you can do that, but then at that point, it's more of a, I don't know. It's not an equation. Yeah. It's not, art is not an equation. And I think that there is this, like, I remember the word aesthetic, people didn't even use that in conversation before the Instagram era.
Yeah, that's so true.
No one used that word. You could say the word aesthetic and people would look at you weird, like, you nerd, like, where'd you learn that word? But like, it's become such a part of our vocabulary because I think that we put aesthetics over actual content and the actual soul in the art. And I think that people resonate with the soul and they recognize it when they see it. And you get to that soul by just letting yourself go free. When you're trying to do this perfect grid that's all the right pastel colors and blah, blah, blah. It's like, at some point it just feels calculated. And I don't think calculation there's things you want calculated, right? Like I want the people designing my apartment building to use sharp calculations, right? And I'm sure the people whose financial portfolios you're working on want you to be sharp and calculated. But when it comes to art, I think you have to let yourself be spontaneous. And I think people feel it when they see it,
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
I did have a question for you. One more question. It's a little bit off topic, but what I like to hear from artists, just because I feel like this is such a like kind of taboo subject, is like, how do you go about pricing your work? And like, I kind of like to ask every different person because there's so many different answers for this, but I just think that a lot of people listening are interested in that question. And so I think it'd be interesting to hear like your perspective on your commissions.
Yeah, that's definitely a tricky topic, and I think something that every artist continues to refine, I guess, throughout, learning that process. I think when I first started pricing my artwork, I had to think about how long that piece would usually take me, and then how much, I guess, for artists, how much are you willing to accept as compensation for that time you're investing into a piece? And then also, you know, taking into account like your skill level in painting that particular subject. And then I think, I also took into account how large the canvas was, or the piece of paper that I was painting on was. I know that there's, like, if you look online, there's a lot of different calculations, for example, like a certain price per square inch or something like that. But I think that only takes you so far, and then you would need to kind of adjust that according to what you're willing to accept. And I think also, like, I think maybe some artists might be comparing, you know, their prices to other artists. But then one thing I would say is that because living standards is, like, the cost of living is so different to between different countries, that some people might be able to price it for a lot more cheaply than an artist from another country would, just because like, yeah, the cost of living is so different. So, like, you know, $10 for one country is so different to what you can get as $10 in another country. So I kind of take that into account as to yeah, like, how much can you get? Does this, you know, commission, you know, get you one dinner's worth of? So I guess kind of putting it into that perspective. Yeah, and so I started with, yeah, thinking about the size first, as well as the time that I spend. And I know that, like, over time, you naturally become quicker at painting that particular subject. So you might want to, you know, adjust your prices accordingly, or, you know, and also you might want to increase it if you feel like there's so much demand. So if you're getting, like, you know, a lot of commissions in particular months, you might want to start thinking about increasing your prices to slightly reduce that demand, because you don't want to be just burnt out by commission after commission. So adjusting your prices also according to, you know, how much time you have. I think that's yeah, something to think about as well.
Totally.
Cool. Well, so we do a segment called Ask an Artist, right? Where we ask for emails. Unless, do you guys have anything else you want to cover before we get to that?
I think that was the last thing I was interested in, but thanks
Felix,
for
do you
your
have
answer.
do you have any other questions for me?
Yeah, I'm just you know, I'm just humbled to be able to talk like this to another artist, and you're amazing. You know, you're taking this in a very natural, like, organic way. I see it, you know, the way you approach it, and that's beautiful. I think that every artist should remember that, you know, to just be simple. Don't overthink. Don't look at other people's pages. Sometimes you can look and compare, like you were talking about pricing, and like, and we tend to do that. All of us do that. Like, I don't know why we just. But like, if we just become more and more, like, simple about, like, art, even life, it just makes it more, you know, like, less enjoyable.
Yeah.
And we're so thankful that you're, like, so open and easy to talk to, and it's just been super fun getting to know you, like, over social media.
Yeah, we were having a conversation the other day that, like, you know, kind of vision for what we want to do with this podcast, you know, and like, what's our specific angle? We don't, you know, want to just be another podcast talking about art. And like, one of the things that we all agreed on is that we want to start to, like, tell a different story about what an artist can be, you know, because I think that historically there's this idea that you have to be either, like, tortured or a starving artist, or you have to have a lot of like, once you get successful, you have to have all this mystique around you, and you have to, like,
you can't share too much about your life or
you
yourself.
have to be fancy, you have to wear a lot of black, you know. It's like there's all these ideas floating around about what it
look miserable
means to be an artist. Yeah. And it's like, I think I'm firmly of the belief that, like, if you take some of the pretense out of it and you just allow people to be a real person and, like, show that they can be nice and regular and just a pleasant person to be around, like, I think there's a lot of artists out there like that. And I want to be a part of, like, changing that narrative, you know. And I think that Felix has gone so far in that direction already. And it's like, you know what I mean? And I think there's so many other artists like that. And those are the artists we want to promote, you know?
100%. I
And
feel like
you're absolutely one of those artists,
Yeah,
which is why we were so
Oh,
excited to have you on as
yeah.
one of our first
oh,
guests.
Thank
it's an
you for being
honor.
here.
It's an
And we
honor
might
to
even
be
have you
here.
back in the, later in the
Oh,
future.
amazing.
So we want to say that to every artist because it's kind of fun to see what happens in, a
Yeah.
year or whatever. But like, yeah, we're really excited about this because we don't know where this, podcast is going to go or what's going to happen, but we're just excited to talk face to face to artists around the world, just regular people, because we're
Mhm.
no special. We're just regular people like, all over the world trying to have fun creating. That's as simple as it gets. So anyway, Sebastian, you wanted to?
Yeah, so starting this week, we want to do a thing called Ask an Artist. So if you have questions for Felix or for any of our guests, we will always answer them, together. And you can email colorbyfelixpod@gmail.com with your question, and I will make sure it gets to Felix. And so this week comes from Yvonne. I hope I'm saying that right. And she says, I was married 65 years. I was very creative, several mediums. Hubby died 11 of 2020. She expected initial grief, but now in 2022, she still struggles with creative energy and motivation. I want to paint with the energy that I had before. I'm 87. I've been in art since childhood. I did clay for 30 years, worked in every medium. I make jewelry, and I taught and I still teach by Zoom. But with all my free time now, I'm not well motivated. Should I pop out at least one painting a day? Thoughts? So to summarize, her husband died. She's done art all her life in all mediums, and now she's finding herself to have all this free time, but a lack of motivation. And just wondering what you guys think would be a good strategy for that, for getting back into it, or if she should get back into it right now. But yeah.
Who wants to start first?
Yeah.
I know it's
Our
kind of
guest.
a heavy
We need to
question,
think
but
more.
Yeah. No, but yeah, firstly, just so sorry to hear that. Sorry, what was the name of the lady? Yvonne. Yvonne, yeah, so sorry to hear that, Yvonne. It's definitely tragic, and I think a lot of these life experiences can change, who you were before and things that you previously enjoyed before. I think in terms of how to get that motivation back, I would say not putting the pressure of, popping out a painting as the final outcome, but just maybe start small, like start on a small piece of work and just enjoying the process rather than trying to get to a finished painting. I think maybe just starting to get back into the process might help. So it doesn't have to be like a finished artwork. It could just be, something simple, just to kind of dip your feet back into creativity. And I'm sure it'll come naturally for her, given that she's, been an artist before and she really enjoys that. So I think maybe just baby steps towards it and not kind of putting that pressure on, cranking out one painting a day, because I think you definitely don't need that extra pressure when you're trying to get back into something. So I would say start small and be easy on yourself, and just see how you feel. Once you create something small, you might want to, then go for something bigger. But I would say take it slowly and take it one step at a time.
Yes, amen to that.
yeah, I think that's really wise.
That's a good advice.
You have anything to add, Felix?
I think it's beautifully said, but also like I was just thinking maybe like I would recommend, again, I am sorry to hear about your husband, and but I believe like I feel like you could an idea, this is just an idea, is like try something maybe new in a way, like maybe go out on the nature, maybe do something like that will change up a little bit of the routine in your life, just a little bit. And maybe it doesn't have to be like painting or getting back into, but just that change of the routine a little bit. And then maybe that'll spark your inspiration to jump into a canvas because you've seen something different or felt something new, and like, or going out to a gallery or something like simple. It doesn't have to be crazy, but just a change of routine. Maybe that could spark up something new inside of you. I would encourage to try it, see what happens from there. Because that would happen to me too. If I tried getting out of the routine and trying something else, I would get the spark, and I'm like, I'm excited, and nothing's gonna stop me to just get back home to my studio and paint, because of something little that I changed,
That's cool.
But
Yeah.
anything you guys want to add?
I mean, it's crazy that she's still like making so much art at 87. That's so cool.
That's awesome.
I want to be like that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like you've earned it at this point. You don't have to. Like, I think what Wendy said is so wise, is like not being tied to the outcome, but instead the process, like actually enjoy the process of selecting colors and feeling the texture of the paints as you paint and all of that, and like getting into the flow of it. I think that's true for just anything in life, is like enjoy the process, because most of your life is process. Most of your life is not victories or completions. Those victories and completions happen maybe once every few months, if that,
So true.
And it's like, so most of the time in your life will be spent working on something, or even if it's working on a relationship or whatever. And it's like, yeah, enjoy the process. And then I like what you said too, Felix, because it reminded me of when I lived in New York City, and I was so like overly disciplined about my music back then. I was like a drill sergeant with myself, and I would say no to things. Like no is my favorite word, because I'm like, I'm sacrificing for my art, So my friends would be like, let's go to happy hour after work. Nope, sorry guys, going home to make art. And I realized though that became damaging. Like I was in such a routine, like you said, and sometimes the best inspiration I had was when I made myself go out and walk around Central Park on a weekend, and just seeing all those people and being back out in humanity. I got so many ideas, and it's just crazy how a little switch up like that can just change everything.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that helped, Yvonne. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
And again, you guys, if you're hearing this and you have any questions for us, please just email colorbyfelixpod@gmail.com, and I will make sure to read the best ones and
select some.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Not the best, but I will select one. Yeah. And so I just want to say real quick, sorry, I know I've been talking a lot right now, but I get excited talking to artists. And so Wendy, I personally think that you have huge things in your future, because I see your paintings pop up on Instagram, and I'm like, oh, that's WendyPaints. Like, it's a very signature style. And I think that, there's a lot of animal lovers out there, and even just appreciating the textures of what you do and just getting the fur so precise. It's a very unique style, and it's very recognizable and cool. And I totally think that, like, if you already haven't had, I mean, it looks like you're growing pretty fast, but I think if we check in a year from now, you're going to be in a really good spot.
And your art, just for my, just giving you a little bit of compliments, what it does to me, when I look at it, it makes me happy and joyful. It's a beautiful, like a very bright kind of paintings that you create. When I look at them, they're just happy, and I just feel like that a lot of the times people need that, even an image can change somebody's perspective or into a positive way. So keep up the great work. We're excited to see
thank you so much. Thank you, Felix. I just want to say, like, it's been such an honor to, be invited to this. And, you are definitely someone that I looked up to for inspiration when I was getting back into painting and my creative journey. So, like, for now to be able to, speak with you guys, the three of you face to face, it's definitely an honor. And really enjoyed chatting to you. And thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
thanks for coming on. It's been a total pleasure.
Thank you.
And do you want to shout out your pages or your website or what's coming for you in the future? Anything?
Sure. So I'm hoping to have my website up maybe in the next month or so. That should just be probably going to be my handle. I haven't thought about the link yet, but I think it will just be wendypaints.com, and hopefully that's not taken. But hoping to get my website up this year and release some paintings.
Nice.
Awesome. So in the meantime, just follow her at WendyPaints on Instagram, and it's the same on YouTube.
Yes, my YouTube is also WendyPaints.
Nice.
Awesome.
And if anyone wants to commission you, they just DM you.
Yeah, for now it'll be DM, and then I'm hoping to have that properly set up on my website, so it'll be a more official process. But yeah, for now it's just either email or DM.
Nice. Okay, awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I'm sure we're going to have you back in the future. And thank you guys again for tuning in. This is Wendy. We are excited to have her here, and we look forward to speaking to you in the future.
See you next time.
See you next time on the Color by Felix podcast. Thanks for listening.